Y'all are live, and whenever you're ready to go, you can go.
I think we have 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Dr. Hanaway, I think you logged in as the board, so I'm going to change your name.
Thanks, John.
It was probably from our practice this afternoon.
Yep, I forgot to change the account.
It is 7 o'clock. I just want to give Tom 1 more minute.
Rachel, he's here.
Oh, he's here? Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't see you. Okay. Okay, so good evening. I would like to call to order the Policy Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 18th at 7:01. So the first policy up for discussion is RPS Policy 6142.101 Wellness. Just a little background at first here. It was revised in 2009. It is in the Shipman and Goodwin Model Policy Fall Update of 2021. It is a required policy by CABE as per the July 2021 update, and it is also mentioned in the CABE 2019 audit. At this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Hanaway and Stephanie Noto, a nutritionist, to walk us through a draft of the wellness policy.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So I could even give more background. So the district has a wellness committee, which is comprised of many members of in-district personnel, as well as community members, and local pediatricians. And the focus of the most recent wellness committee work was around revising our wellness policy. So that work happened actually, and the draft that you're seeing right now was completed pretty shortly before the initial hit of the pandemic in the spring of 2020. So we were actually prepared at that point to bring it to the board, and then with everything that happened with the pandemic and other policies that took precedence, this policy kind of got waylaid in the process. So there was an entire committee that worked together. And what we did was we not only looked at the statutory and regulatory requirements, but we also looked at local districts and what their wellness policy looked like that had been recently updated. And then we came up with a draft together as a group. And then Dawn and I have had updated meetings with Stephanie, who's the consulting nutritionist to the district, to make sure from her vantage point that the policy includes all the federal requirements that it does. And when we get to that point, I will let her provide some background on that. So does everybody have the policy in front of you? Okay. All right. So let me just make sure that I have it here. Sorry, too many tabs open. Okay. So I can't see you while I'm doing this, Rachel. So please, or anybody, feel free to jump in and interrupt me as I go if you have questions. So this policy like Rachel had mentioned, it does mirror the Shipman and Goodwin model policy. It begins with a statement of the policy on wellness, which is expanded as compared with what was included in the previous draft. And then it gets into the goals and guidelines that the board will, or that we're proposing the board to adopt in consultation with the Wellness Committee. And much of this policy is really dictating what the board will direct either the Wellness Committee or the district administration to do in efforts towards wellness. So the first goals and guidelines is around wellness education and promotion, then gets into physical activities and other school-based activities. And within each of these, you see that there are objectives, sub-objectives within each goal. And then the third area of goal and guidelines is around nutritional guidelines for school food. The next broad section of the policy then speaks to measuring the wellness policy itself, including how the policy will be overseen by the district, how it will be assessed every 3 years by the district, and how information will be disseminated to the public around the wellness policy and activities, or the wellness activities that that the committee will enact, and then how the Board of Education and the district will retain records to remain in compliance with the wellness policy, as well as the activities of the committee. So the heavy shift in this policy, at least content-wise, is around the committee itself and how it will function, and how it will really remain as an active group on a yearly basis, to make sure that this is a policy that doesn't just kind of sit in the policy book, but has a lot of regular work that the board directs the district to do as a result. Stephanie, do you want to speak to the federal guidelines and the nutritional guidelines connected here?
You're on mute, Stephanie.
Hi. Thank
Hi.
you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yes, to talk a little bit about the wellness policy. So as Dr. Hanaway was just explaining, the USDA has kind of updated their regulations with the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act to ensure that this policy is not one that sits on the shelf. We are required, as long as we participate in the USDA programming, we are required to assess the policy every 3 years. So the district has kind of just gone through that. And the assessment is quantitative. It's very objective, based on what basically regulations are and what the USDA deems to be good practices, good best practices. And the district can adopt or not adopt, whatever they choose to. But as far as the assessment goes, the more you adopt, the stronger your policy is. And the quantitative scoring goes, it evaluates comprehensiveness to show kind of how many topics the policy addresses overall, and then the strength of the topics addressed. So it's kind of more, the regulation piece would be a little more detailed in terms of the assessment, but the policy definitely touches on nutrition education, nutrition standards, physical education, wellness promotion, and is a little bit more specific in terms of the new Healthy Hunger-Free Kids regulation, mentioning things like smart snacks for schools, and just being up to date on that end. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Something else I failed to highlight is that this policy, different from the last, includes mental wellness. If you look at the wellness education and promotion goals and guidelines in the first section, the last bullet there, it speaks to incorporating mental wellness as part of the district's effort around the overall wellness policy. So that is definitely a shift from what the content of the current or the current and hopefully soon to be previous policy looks like.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from policy committee members? Ken?
Selena can go first.
Oh, Selena?
I just have a question about, so when I was reading about the different snacks and that sort of thing, I have a question about the inclusion of fat-free snacks or low-fat snacks, because sometimes when we replace fat, we add sugar. So is there any oversight on that sort of thing? Like with dressings especially, I noticed with my own children, when I actually looked at like ranch dressing, there's actually sugar that replaces the fat for taste. And when studies have been done, there's no, obesity does not change when you replace fat with low fat, especially in children. And diabetes is on the rise because of sugar. There's so much added sugar to food. So I'm wondering, I mean, personally, I just think there needs to be such an emphasis on portions, and instead of replacing things and you know, just healthy eating. Like I love, you know, when I see like fruit and that sort of thing, but the low fat and the fat-free potato chips kind of bothers me. I mean, just the fat-free potato chips definitely are going to have the sugar in them. So I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit, and maybe if we could even maybe look for some alternatives to the fat-free stuff.
So yes, I could answer that for you. So I'm actually not really sure where in the policy it mentions fat-free, but
It's in the food choices, Appendix B, suggested healthy food choices.
so that is that part of the regulation that we haven't updated yet? I'm not sure.
It's in the wellness policy, RPS current policy. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we might be updating that. So
if it's part of the regulation, yeah, that hasn't been updated quite yet. But as far as the snacks that are being served and the products that are in the cafeteria is definitely regulated by the USDA, and there are nutrition standards that cover saturated fat, trans fat, sugar on all the snacks. So what you're going to see as far as chips and stuff like that goes, it's not going to be fat free. It's going to be baked. You're going to see baked Lay's. You're going to see items like that. You're going to see popcorn. You're going to see smaller portions of chips. You know, smaller bags that meet the calorie requirements. So there's definitely a lot of nutrition regulations that oversee the snack.
Selena, are you looking at the purple document when you mentioned appendix?
I am.
So that's the policy that's being replaced
okay.
by the white one. So that's Stephanie. So it isn't in the new policy.
Okay.
Selena, there was an email sent out today that contains the policy we're discussing now.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I need to go and look for, that's the one that, because I read the entire thing. So the one, that email is the one that's replacing this one. Okay. Then I apologize. My printer's broken, so I could not print that document out, but I'll turn on.
You'll be glad that you didn't print it now, because it was a lot of pages and it's just being replaced anyway, Selena. So that's the
Oh,
good
it is? Well, I'll open it while we're talking and
Right.
glance at it. I'll open it because
Yes.
I've got my Chromebook right here.
It's this one that you're looking for, Selena.
Okay.
It takes a little bit of time to get used to all of these. So,
Crazy.
yeah.
Okay, and it was just more the low fat, that because I know that that's like a big thing. Low fat this and low fat that, and the sugar content of things is really, you know, more. I'm not really big on diets for kids anyway. I just think portion size is, because when you tell kids they can't have something, they're going to go eat it somewhere. So that's
Thank
all.
you, Selena.
I think, Selena, also, I think that data was back from 2009. So
It
I think
was.
we've come a long way nutritional.
Okay.
And you'll note in the new policy, there's not that level of specificity because the rate of change with food products and how they're produced. If we created a policy, it would never be able to keep up if we had that level of specificity in the policy itself. So you won't see that there.
Ken, you were next. You have a question?
A lot of mine were more grammatical. Surprising not many people on the phone, I'm sure, or on the call. Leaving the Oxford comma out of the first paragraph. Going through the goals and guidelines section 1, there are 3 or 4 that really jump out, like missing words and just things that were misspelled. I don't know if it's constructive to go through each one of them or if just to take a whole.
No, we can do an overall. We can do an overall review again and clean it up before it comes back for second read. We can talk about. I'm happy to debate the Oxford comma, though.
Well, if anything, we need to be consistent. So if we use it sometimes, we need to use it all the time or never. So that's my only thing. I prefer
and don't go with 2 quotes or 1 quote around words with Dr. Hanaway, and don't try to put an apostrophe in your fiscal year. Is it before or is it after? So
single, double quotation mark.
Plurals. How about the apostrophe S for plural?
So, and single and double quotation marks have rules. Yeah, no.
I know. So no. So
okay, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I prefer Oxford comma, but we need to be consistent whichever way we go.
Okay.
Would be my only.
And Dr. Hanaway, just for my own clarification, I thought it would go to the full board for their first read. And
okay.
Then will it come back here first? Is that what you're suggesting? No.
I meant whenever the next step is, we'll clean up the grammar and the spelling for that version.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Tom, do you have any questions before we move forward on this policy? You're good. Okay, so I believe staff then could go to the board for their first read. As a reminder, we do review the policies as, oh, go ahead, Ken.
I was just gonna suggest maybe for the new members that you go through that process and you started it before I even could say anything.
Okay,
All right.
We're reading each other's mind. That's awesome. So as a reminder, we will review the policies as a committee and then they will go to the full board for a first and then a second read and then a vote. Okay, so moving on, and thank you again, Stephanie, for joining us this evening. You're very helpful. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Hanaway, for leading us through the policy.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye, Stephanie.
Bye.
Thank you, Stephanie. So our next policy for discussion is 5141.3. Health assessments and immunization. The last time that this policy was revised was in 2015. The model language in our current policy is the administration regulations as per the Shipman and Goodwin model for health assessments and immunization. The language from the Shipman and Goodwin was adopted in 2015 as policy. So in preparation for our discussion this evening and to inform our committee whether we can adopt regulations as policy, I sought out administrative input and legal counsel. The resolution in this case is we can do this as a board under bylaw 9313. And I just want to read it to you briefly so we can all be on the same page. So bylaw 9313 states that the board does not adopt administrative regulations unless specifically required to do so by law or unless requested to do so by the superintendent. So with Dr. De Silva's input, as well as legal counsel, we may keep this as policy. I do think that you will find the Shipman and Goodwin language is definitely more comprehensive and preferable, in my opinion, over the K version. You also will find the key version in front of you. That is a document that I apologize also came to you today so that you would have it in front of you. Further, the updates are mandated by law. So it would be my recommendation to go through the policy and amend as per the Shipman and Goodwin red lines. Thoughts and questions?
Rachel, if I can just add a couple of pieces just very quickly. So as Rachel mentioned, we do have a model policy by way of CABE that we could adopt that policy. That said, our preference is, so you have the CABE policy that was emailed to you. Our preference is the Shipman and Goodwin regulations that we're adopting as policy. So we'd ultimately be taking CABE's policy and redlining that up with a lot of the regulations coming out of Shipman. So it was cleaner for us to continue the practice that was already in place in 2015 to adopt those set of regulations as policy. So that's just to clarify that a little bit or to add some color. Additionally, just so that you understand what the changes are, when it comes to the health assessments, for example, we're revising the policy to conform with Public Act 2195, which is regarding the implementation of vision screenings and the reporting of children with asthma. So we need to collect that data and then we have to report it. So that's part of the new law. So that's really the distinguishing difference there. And if we had altered, which I don't believe we did, our health assessments for 2021 in light of COVID, we would need to add that other piece. That said, we didn't do that. So really we're conforming. These new regulations from Shipman and Goodwin are conforming with the law that requires the implementation of vision screenings and the reporting requirements with respect to children with asthma, diagnosed with asthma. So that's the difference there. And then we can get to immunizations after you take a look, if you would like, at the health assessments piece. Does that make sense, Rachel?
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Silva. Ken?
If we adopt the regulation as policy, doesn't it just become our policy?
Yeah, so it would be our policy, correct. So in this document, so 5141.3 part 1 on health assessments, we would just cross off administrative regulation to just make that policy. Again, we could adopt CABE, but you'll find if you look at CABE, at least from our point of view, we'd be spending more time redlining that and throwing in Shipman's regulations that it just didn't make sense to do so.
Okay. And our current policy looks like it follows the Shipman anyway.
It does. It follows the regulations, correct?
Are we going to keep it part 1 and part 2? Or is it going to be 0.3 or is it going to be 0.31 and 0.32?
So currently our policy, the 5141.3 is a combination of Shipman and Goodwin's part 1 and part 2.
Right. So are we going to keep it separate?
I mean, that would be a conversation, I guess, for this committee. I would think that we would keep it together as is for consistency. What are their comments on that?
If there's repetition, then maybe, but otherwise, I think it is okay. It's good to keep it separate, so you're not wading through 14 pages of something if you're just interested in immunization. But if the first 3 pages are repetitive, then yes. But I don't think that they are. So, that question was more geared towards just the nomenclature that it should be part 1 and part 2. It should be like 0.31 and 0.32 if we're keeping it separate.
Oh, yeah.
Good point.
And then outside of changes to follow law, you'll just notice some editing shifts in red line, some him or her to the student, some referring to the parent or guardian. I think those are pretty much the small minor shifts in the regulation, which is now policy. Grades not on pages 5 and 7, it makes the shifts to the grades in terms of reporting the diagnosis of asthma.
And then Dr. De Silva, the only question would be whether or not to include the oral health assessment piece in our current policy. It's in the regulation under health assessment on page 2 of 7, but not in our current policy.
I think it's cleaner if we keep it all together.
Mhm. Agreed.
And then I think we just need to make a decision, and Aaron is not here. Unfortunately, he had a family personal matter he had to take care of, but my recommendation would just be to check with him whether or not we want to require the assessment in grade 6 or grade 7, or similarly, the assessment in grade 9 or 10. So if we could just hold on that piece of information, and as long as the committee feels comfortable moving ahead with us letting you know where we landed with that at the Board of Education meeting, then I think we'd be okay.
I would be okay with that. Other policy committee members? Would you be okay with that if we went forward with that in mind? Okay, I see no
Yes.
objection, Dr. De Silva, so I guess it could move forward.
So similarly with immunizations, we would take out the language of administrative regulation and adopt the regulation as policy also. In this particular case, Shipman is revising the regs to comport with Public Act number 21-6, which is revised to which revised the religious exemption to the immunization requirements for school attendance. And so you'll notice that. And then again, similarly, you'll see some spelling shifts and some incidental language. And primarily you want to look at page 2 in section B. And that's where the shift was made in terms of law this year, with prior to April 28th, 2021, students were exempt from the applicable immunization requirements upon presentation of the statement that the immunizations were contrary to their religious beliefs. So that's the new law that's now evidenced in this policy. And then you'll see on pages 3 through 5 some more detail on that as well, all in blue. And, as point of clarification, we've been implementing the law since that date. So really this just codifies it.
Any questions from policy members? Dr. Silva seems like, oh, Ken, go ahead.
Just my usual formatting, but I'm going to presume that that's all going to be fixed up by the time it comes back.
I will take care of that, or I will have Dr. Hanaway make sure that the Oxford comma is strategically.
No, this one's numbering and sequential.
The numbering.
Sequencing. So
we'll clean that up.
different here.
Ken, I caught the numbering too. I saw that.
Eagle eyes.
Okay.
There's some so on. I think there was one in the previous in part 1 also. But are we going to be? How are we going to handle the inserts? Are we going to name that a position, or are we going, which I recommend, or are we going to use an actual name? Specifically, like here, I'm looking at page 4 or 5 at the bottom.
Oh, we will. Yeah. So this typically would be like the director of nursing. So it's standard. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think there was one on the part 1 also. So.
Yes, we'll take care of that.
Take Ken's point, just always make sure you keep the title, not a name.
Got it.
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. De Silva, do you have anything else you want to add on that before we move on?
No, I think those are pretty straightforward. Thank you, Rachel.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Silva. Okay. So the next three policies listed have minor changes. I would like to go through those changes for the committee consideration, ask for questions, and then move them forward for the full board. So the first one is RPS Policy 5113.2. It's attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism. 5 times fast, right? It was revised recently on 10/12/21. It was in the Shipman and Goodwin Model Policy Full Update. It is, as well as the CAPE required policies mentioned in their July 2021 update. This policy has been revised and the accompanying administrative regulations to conform with Section 19 of Public Act number 21-46, which requires local and regional boards of education to allow any student enrolled in grades kindergarten through 12 to take the 2 non-consecutive days each school year as mental health wellness days. At this time, there has been only legal references updated in the policy, which you will see in the redlined version. Regulations have changed. However, there's no vote needed or discussion since regulations are not in the purview of the Board of Education. Thus, it would be my recommendation that this committee pass on the legal reference update to the full board for their consideration on this policy. The next policy, RPS Policy 3524.2. The last time, oh, Ken, go ahead, I'm sorry.
On 5113.2, one question. So as is, one, there's missing one of Liz's Oxford commas in the title. But is it, so just from again a format perspective, this is all caps. Most of our other policies are not all caps. Just from a consistency sake, they should be the same. What is another person having control of the child? Would that not be the guardian?
I would say it could possibly be the guardian. Trying to think of who else it could be outside of the guardian.
Because our other policies say the parent or guardian. So so one of two things, either guardian is the right term, or maybe on the other policies, we need to change it to parent or person. I don't like that. I don't like this term. I don't know if that's clear. The person who controls the child. Person has responsibility for the child, maybe, but is that not what the guardian would be?
I don't see why we couldn't switch it to parent guardian and be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or guardian. I'm not a big fan of slash. If I could input on that.
I'm going to watch my Friday newsletter and make sure I don't have any of those. I'm pretty sure I have slashes.
He has an APA manual when he reads it, I think.
You can do slash. You can do slashes. It's not a preference. It's a preference thing. It's not incorrect.
Ken, for my consistency here, can you just repeat, please, the part that you would like? Connecticut state law places responsibility for assuring that students attend school with the parent or
guardian.
Or guardian.
And then it continues to assist parents and guardians in meeting this responsibility.
Okay. Point well taken. Thank you, Ken. Anybody else have any questions on this policy before moving forward? Selena?
So, because I'm new at this and maybe I should know, but I don't, so I'm sorry. Where do we see the procedures? So we have this policy, but where do I see the policies in place, like to make sure if a child's chronically absent, like what's the procedure in place to make sure there's no trauma going on in the family, or someone speaks to someone, like what are those procedures? I mean, I see that we're adopting a policy that says we're adopting procedures, but where are the procedures?
So those are in several different places, but they're traditionally in regulations. You'll find more context in regulations. And then Selena, in addition to that, those are operational procedures. So those procedures could theoretically change, right? We might find a better process than we currently have this year. And so operationally, we come together and we say, okay, this is what we do after. There's some that are very clear, right? The state will say you need to contact the parent after such and such days. You have to have a meeting with such and such days. But then operationally, we may want more than that, right? We may want one of our guidance counselors to connect with the student on the 10th day. We may want so those are operational. Regulations typically will provide further context to a policy, Selena, just in terms of structure. But those procedures are in-house and they shift and they change based on the team's input. You know, we may say, okay, these meetings are not helpful because they're, you know, basically checking the boxes. So we'd rather do something else, and we can put that into place.
Okay, if we're adopting a policy, I would like to make sure that, like, there are some procedures to make sure that the kids just aren't getting in trouble for being truant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that,
I mean, and I do trust that our district is not like that, but I just, especially right now, there's so much going on, you know, so I just wondered where those were.
so those would be held at each, you know, really at the district level, and then at each school might have slightly different procedures, right? What we do for secondary kids versus a kindergartner looks different, and the process and structure might look different, but policy is broad. That's what the Board of Ed navigates, and then those procedures are operational and they could change. But it's certainly, if the Board of Education was curious as to, you know, we'd like to know what this might look like for a student, we can certainly communicate that either in a Board of Education meeting or something like that, knowing that it changes. Right. Because, you know, we rely on our administrators to tell us what's working and what's not working.
Ken?
Selena, I find it helpful, while it's a little imprecise, to think of the policy as the why and the procedures as the how.
Right. Yeah.
And so that helps me.
Right.
It's imprecise because that's not really what a policy is, but it sort of helps me keep them clear in my head.
Right.
And then the procedures are really the operations of the district, in which we don't get involved in. That's really Dr. De Silva's area. Are there any other questions on this policy before moving forward? Okay, so we will amend in the first paragraph the guardian, and then we will update legal references here and move forward to the full board for consideration. Okay. So our next policy is RPS Policy 3524.2. It's green cleaning. The last time this policy was revised was again recently on 6/28/21. In the Shipman and Goodwin Model Policy Fall Update, they have revised this policy to make permanent one of the COVID-19 temporary revisions, which specifies that pursuant to Connecticut law, a Board of Education may use any cleaning product approved by federal law. So as you can see, there is added language in the first paragraph, last sentence, as per the Shipman and Goodwin Red Line policy. And it reads, pursuant to subsection A2A of section 10-231G of the Connecticut General Statutes, and a disinfecting cleaner, sanitizer, or any other antimicrobial product approved by federal law may be used by the board. That's a tongue twister too. So that is added in language into this policy. Is there any questions on this policy before moving forward? Ken?
Two. First, do we provide a list to each staff member in our district, the cleaning supplies, or do we make it available to them?
I think we make it available to them. Dawn, is that accurate at the start of the year?
That is accurate. We control the purchasing of the individual type of cleaners that are used.
Right. But do we provide them a list of the program? Like we hand each teacher or email each teacher an outline of the program?
I think what
That's
you're
the policy
asking,
says we do.
I think what you're asking, Ken, just to be clear, is like, do we tell our staff you can't use Clorox wipes?
No. It just the first line of the second paragraph says we shall provide the staff of each school a written statement of the school district's green cleaning program. Do we do that?
Yes, the green cleaning program is known to Joe. It's under the facilities department that takes care of that. It's also out on our website. And it is updated based on the different regulations that are brought forward each year. He definitely does keep an eye on that, and he does let them know what is used, what can be used, what can't be used.
But are you looking at like the classroom teacher level? Ken, would that
Looking at the classroom teacher level, the secretaries in the office, because those are still staff of each school. I mean, that's what we're saying in the policy. So where I'm going is we should have in the policy what we actually do.
So I don't know if that's distributed, Ken, and I think it's a good question that we'd have to come back to, or at least answer. And Joe couldn't be here tonight, but be able to answer it at least at the Board of Education level, whether or not that is communicated directly to teachers. If not, and that's what our policy is saying that we're doing, then we should. That's the shift should happen. It may already be happening, but we'll have to clarify that. If not, then it'll have to happen that way.
Or we can say it's made available on the district's website. So whatever is actually the procedure.
Okay, so
because I think that would be a lot, and not necessary. Every teacher doesn't necessarily need to know that. It sort of segues into my second question.
Our teachers are well informed, generally speaking, that I do
Right.
know, but how they become informed is the question that I don't know the answer to, and I wouldn't want to misspeak, Ken.
Okay, no,
But we'll find out.
I understand. I just, like, when my wife was a teacher, I don't think she could tell me what the green cleaning program was at the school she was at.
She could tell you that she couldn't use Clorox. That's what she could tell you, that
She could tell you, yes, that she
she's
could tell you.
very
Which-
frustrated that she can't, and would tell you that she doesn't feel like the tables come as clean as
That's
she would
right.
like them.
I don't
So
know
that
she
she could tell you.
I don't know that she would tell me that. I think she would say, please don't tell Dr. De Silva that I've used
Contraband, that
Clorox
she's bringing in
wipes
contraband.
on my own desk, which brings me down to, I think we had this discussion last year, to point 4, with our statement that no parent, guardian, teacher, or staff member may bring into the school facility any consumer product which is intended to clean, deodorize, sanitize, or disinfect. That's again, I know we were saying that all the teachers are aware of the program, but that is an often requested item. And I think we went through hand wipes versus Clorox disinfectant wipes versus, and it's just one of those things, if we have it in writing, it needs to be
Codified with our teachers. Okay.
Any other questions on this policy? Okay, so the next policy is RPS Policy 3524.1. Last time RPS Policy 3524.1 was revised was 2010. It is a CAPE required policy as mentioned in the July 2021 update. It was also mentioned in our 2019 audit done by CAPE that we needed the newest version. I would recommend that the committee move forward with the Shipman and Goodwin version presented here, where we delete the last line in our current policy and we update our legal references. The last line in our current policy has a statement saying, notwithstanding this prohibition until July 1st, 2010. So that has come and gone. That is why it's not in the new updated version. So I think we should take out that sentence and update our legal references. Are there any questions regarding the pesticide policy?
No. Oh, sorry.
Ken?
Forgot I wasn't on mute. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Again, just to format it, and just to be clear to everyone on our call, that when we introduce it to the board, which is where I think this is headed, the note at the top is going to be removed. The formatting is going to be like the rest of our policies, just so everyone knows. I think that's good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. So that can move forward to the full board. Oh, Ken.
Yes, I just, before I might have jumped at a few seconds, but I know the next policy is bullying, and it's going to be a big one. And I forgot to have ask a question on the wellness in the beginning about the food, and I just don't remember. I should, but when outside food, and I'm thinking right now of like Tiger Hollow, how is that fitting into this policy? Or is it addressed somewhere else? Is that more of a procedural thing than as part of the wellness policy?
And I think the answer to your question on that is each year I bring forward to the board whether or not outside organizations need to follow the National School Lunch Program protocols. And we always vote down no, that PTAs do not, that other organizations that can come to our school, whether it's pasta parties or Tiger Hollow or any of that. We always say, no, we don't follow those regulations, and therefore we don't have to follow that. Not to say that shouldn't be part of the policy, or we shouldn't keep that in mind, but it's hard to regulate outside organizations and what is sold, what isn't sold. You've got the school store in the high school, and
thank you, Dawn.
Ken, just in the spirit of not moving forward with bullying tonight, if we can go back to student attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism for a minute. And Rachel, I don't know, it may have been me when we moved quickly through this. Did we, on this policy, did we talk about the remote learning? The remote learning and excused, unexcused language added and withdraw. Those were two changes as well. And I didn't know if we highlighted that. I may have missed it.
No, we did not. I wonder if it's in the regulation part of the policy instead of the actual policy.
I didn't see it in the policy.
So it must be. So I think it's just the legal references.
Correct.
So
and then the parent guardian that we're going to fix.
Right.
But
sorry, the legal references refer to the remote learning piece.
Right. In absence. Yes.
And then the one other piece, there's another legal reference to a student's ability to withdraw from school. Let me just make sure I have that.
Yes, also under the regulations.
Yes, so a student who's 18 years of age or older may withdraw from school. It's a regulation in the truancy exceptions. So I just wanted to highlight that those are reflected in the policy in the legal references. You may have said it, Rachel, but I missed it. I'm sorry.
No. Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. I just touched upon that. We were updating legal references, but I didn't go into the what regulations were being changed based on those references. So thank you. Are there any other questions about the policies that we have gone over this evening? No. Dr. De Silva, do you want to start bullying in safe school climate?
I think we can. Dr. Hanaway, do you want to start or do you want me to?
I can give it a go and then please fill in if there's pieces that I'm missing. Okay, so I'm looking off of the Shipman and Goodwin recommended policy. This is policy 5131.911. And so this policy is recommended for updating for first and foremost language. So you'll note on the first page of the policy, there is an update to the definition of bullying, which has been far streamlined, I'll say, in terms of the definition. The spirit of the definition is the same, but the language has been updated. So that is one of the first main changes to the policy. The next is around students, the requirement of the district upon completion of a bullying protocol, of a bullying investigation, to notify families of the results of the investigation, as well as an explanation of their rights and remedies as a result. And just by way of reference for the board, this is a district practice that we do that, but it's codifying it here in the policy itself. And then the third main piece in the bullying policy that's recommended for update is information on the board's website for training materials for school administrators around the prevention of and the intervention in discrimination and targeted harassment of students based on either actual or perceived differentiating characteristics, to which they list a number of them, or discrimination or targeted harassment for any student who's in association with individuals or groups with those characteristics. So that is recommended for revision here as well. Susie, was there anything else?
Yeah, there was only one other piece. I believe that Public Act number 2195 also expects that we identify additional individuals who must serve on the Safe School Climate Committee.
Yes.
But when I looked at, and I'm just going to try to find that page, I believe that all of the members that they're expecting to be on the committee we already have, but I want to just double check that if I can find that page.
Yeah, so that's actually in the school climate section, which is the second section of the policy.
Page
And
10.
it has to be at least one teacher selected by
The union, that was the distinguishing difference, yes.
Yep, and then at least one parent, medical and mental health personnel assigned to each school, and in the high school, at least one student.
This is on page 10 if you're looking.
Yep, on the school climate section. And then additionally in the Safe School Climate Plan section. So there's a bullying section and there's a Safe School Climate Plan section. There's an update, not only repeating the bullying language update, but there's other definition updates that you'll see throughout, including emotional intelligence, positive school climate, and social emotional learning. I think those are the main revisions. So for our purposes, practically, the changes here don't result in operationally much different for us.
With the exception actually of normally we invite anyone who wants to participate on the committee, where this is expecting that we have at least one that was identified, one adult that was identified by the union.
Are there any questions from policy committee members? Selena?
So when I was reading this, I kept reading the word school climate. And so I feel like the Board of Education is supposed to be involved in setting the school climate as far as the anti-bullying. When I looked at the org chart, the Board of Education is at the top. And I don't see anywhere in here language that shows where we do that. I see the Ridgefield Board of Education is committed to creating and maintaining, but I think the word promoting should be added there. Because when I've watched the Board of Ed the last couple of years, I've seen the Board of Ed engaging in bullying behavior. And I think if we add the word promoting, that means we have to adhere to certain standards as well. Otherwise, it's a do as I say, not as I do. And the school climate should include adults not engaging in bullying as well.
I mean, I agree with Selena. If we are committed to creating and maintaining, then why not promote from our own behavior as a board?
So it's not that I disagree with that at all. However, I'm not sure that it belongs here. And I do think that it does resonate, probably not as specific, Selena, as you're describing, but it does resonate in our meeting conduct policies that we passed not that long ago. It may have been your first meeting, Selena, or the one right before you coming onto the board. Because the reason I say that it doesn't belong here is because this policy is directly related to students, and even though they refer to the board, what they're really implying there is how that translates into the administration and what happens in the schools. And they're really speaking specifically to the school. So I wouldn't want to confuse it here. That's my opinion, because if you look at the sentences thereafter, you can see how they're connected directly to the student. So I do agree, Selena. I'm not at all suggesting that I don't. I'm just not sure that I agree that it belongs here. But that said, I'm one voice. So
I appreciate exactly what you're saying, but after reading it, we are a part of the school climate. So that's where I'm coming from. Because we're a part of the school climate, we must promote and maintain that. Otherwise, somebody could technically say the school climate actually promotes bullying, therefore it's okay that I bully. We are the school climate. Okay, sorry.
So again, I absolutely agree with your point, Selena, but this is when the reference to school climate is the climate in the school. Yeah, I think you're referring to perhaps the district climate or perhaps some other. That this is referring specifically to student behavior within the school. What you're referring to definitely needs to be addressed, and it has been an issue at school board meetings, but a school board meeting is not the school climate. That's the school board
on
meeting.
Social media, Tom wants to say something too, I know, so I'm going to be
All right,
quiet.
Tom.
Yeah, if I may, Selena's point is an excellent point. I think we all agree with it. And one of the things I've suggested to the chair is that the board create a new committee called something like this: Ethics, Professionalism, and Civility. And that board committee could create certain rules and procedures to address exactly what Selena is referencing. So I've asked the chair at a future meeting to put that on the agenda so that we can address the specific issue that Selena is raising.
Okay. I think I appreciate definitely all of the contributions that members are making right now. I definitely agree with Selena as well that we should be promoting an atmosphere that is bullying free. And I appreciate all the comments made. I think that we should table this idea for another discussion, whether it be updating a bylaw of the board in our 9000 series, looking at our meeting conduct, which we did just adopt this past December 13th, or perhaps even if it comes up as an agenda item, as you described, Tom, that would be a great conversation for the full board to have. Does that seem like a fair direction to take at this point?
We need to address behavior on social media too. If we're elected officials, we have a responsibility to lead our young people in an appropriate manner if we have a bullying policy. So somehow, and you know, I understand Dr. De Silva's point and also Ken's point. I don't think how putting the word promoting in there would do anything bad with the policy, but I understand what you're saying.
So actually though, Selena, I was going to come back to that. The word promoting actually doesn't hurt this, whether it's students or Board of Ed. I actually think that that's a positive add to the policy, regardless of the lens in which you're looking at it, right? I'm looking at this policy from the point of students because that's the way it says it. That's the way it's described. You look at it through the lens of a Board of Ed member, look at it through the lens of a parent. I still think that the word promoting isn't necessarily a bad add. So I would be comfortable if we wanted to add that word promoting, because I do think that that's an important element, regardless of the lens that you're looking through. So that I'm comfortable with that if the committee is as well.
I think that actually gives us some ownership to this policy. And I think we need some ownership. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I feel like we all need to remember that we are here for the kids. I mean, not you, you know that. I mean, and everybody here know. I just think it's good to remember, like when we get heated or whatever, it's not about us really, you know, it's about them and they watch us. They're always watching us and how we act. And I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but I just think.
Selena, I don't want to cut you off, but just in the because it is 8 o'clock. It is 8:01.
Okay. And we're all hungry too.
I just want to get Ken and Tom to weigh in here on whether or not we should include the word promoting when bringing this policy to the full board for consideration.
Where's the ad specifically?
So it would be in the first line, Ken. So it would be the Ridgefield Board of Education, the board is committed to creating, promoting, and maintaining an educational environment that's physically, emotionally, that first sentence.
I'm in support of adopting Selena's suggestion.
Okay.
I won't object, but I think it's redundant. So maintaining would encompass promoting, but I'm not going to object. It's not that significant. I do have other edits though, before it goes to.
I hope Cheryl Cook is listening right now.
We appreciate that.
So I would, you know, nothing super important, but it's just for clarity. But I know in the interest of time, is this something maybe we want to continue discussing this policy at the next committee meeting?
I think that might be a good idea. What do you think, Dr. De Silva? Bring it back to policy before bringing it to the full board so that we can have discussion?
I do think so. I'm not sure that we got into the content of it, and just would want people to feel comfortable before we.
Absolutely.
And I think we're bringing a lot. You had a big agenda, Rachel.
I know, we're going to get things done.
I know, I like it. So I think we're bringing a lot to the board.
Rachel's going to get us out of this audit phase.
You got it, guys. All right. So with that, so we will table this for discussion and we will bring it back to the next policy committee meeting. All righty. So I believe I have to ask for, well, are there any other questions, comments? So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Ken, second? Tom? All right. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And thank you so much for your hard work and contribution.
Thank you, Rachel.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye.
Everyone stay safe.